PMFers, who's got that product market fit? Okay, we got it. Boop, boop, boop. It's PMFers. I'm here with Martin from Gnosis. How you doing, Martin? Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Doing well.
Can you, we'll just dive right into this. This is PMFers. We're talking about on-chain product market fit, on-chain users. Can you go like back in your history,
Sure.
even before crypto? Like, how did
Mhm.
you learn how to build? Like, what was the catalyst that got you building?
Um, yeah, I mean the first product we started to build was kind of out of excitement of about Bitcoin. So somehow Bitcoin seems interesting, and we wanted to build something with it, and we somehow somewhat randomly ended up with building a betting market or prediction market for Bitcoin. And I don't know. I mean, there was not we don't. I mean, we just started doing it, and at some point published it, and at some point, um, yeah. Well, then uh, iterated and iterated and iterated over it.
So that's, yeah, my next question is sort of like, what are your first on-chain users? And I think one of these iterations ends up being something that people use on-chain. But what were your first, like,
Yeah, yeah.
first users on-chain?
Yeah, so if we go all the way back, then this was probably 13, 14. So I guess then our first users were people that deposited Bitcoins. And I mean, it was, if you call this on chain, it was not really, I mean, it was essentially using Bitcoin as a payment method, but it wasn't really possible to build this betting exchange on chain on Bitcoin. So Bitcoin was only used as a payment scheme, but still we had actually some well, there are, even with Bitcoin, there are some scripting things you can do, that you can generate an address just for a specific, in our case, bet, and then you would send just Bitcoin to this address, and if you win, then you get more Bitcoin back to the address you sent from. So in that sense, we even back then tried to use the chain in creative ways. But yeah, then essentially Ethereum came along, or at least the promise for Ethereum came along, and we started over and wanted to build this whole then prediction market on Ethereum, and use chain much more, not only for the payment, but actually to facilitate the whole process, the whole trading, the whole kind of make it non-custodial. And all of those things. But the reality was that took then many years. So although kind of very technically, our first on-chain activity on Ethereum was actually a couple of weeks after Ethereum launched. So a couple of weeks after Ethereum launched, we had a prediction market where you could bet on how much money Augur would raise, which was kind of at the time our, I guess, somewhat competitor or something like that. And this was at a time before ERC20 token standard existed, before MetaMask existed, before everything. So you literally had to run a full node to access the site, and you would have to give this full node. There was no way to really manage a wallet, so you had to give this full node actually access to your private key, and kind of just go on a website that basically just triggers transaction from this private key. So it was absolutely insane.
Oh,
wow. And people were then, I think, kind of, we had a couple of thousand Ether in volume, which at the time Ether was at 60, 70 cents. So that's I guess how we started having something on chain, on Ethereum. But of course, that was probably, you cannot really call this a product. It was more for developers that were just curious about Ethereum. They had something to play with, and then something they could then check in the logs or and see that something happened. Essentially.
I think this is I'm more like optimistic market fit. So I absolutely count this. That's really interesting. So it was before even you had ERC20 tokens to be able to kind
long
of
before
have these tokens that you could bid on and then rug one for the other, sort of in a prediction market way.
I mean,
you
we
just
had
had a smart
tokens,
contract. Okay.
I mean, we had tokens, but I mean, just kind of our own custom
Just
tokens
a counter, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I guess it also had a transfer function and whatever, but it was not yet kind of a standardized thing. So our tokens were probably slightly different from someone else's tokens.
You were building more like a play, like for fun prototype prediction market, and it seems like prediction market has kind of been a similar concept for a long time for you. Have you always wanted to ship a prediction market? Is it something you keep circling back to? Like what? The idea of the prediction market and how you think of new ideas and validate those new ideas. How does that all kind of play here?
Prediction markets. Somehow that was basically again our thing. We started even with Bitcoin, where we had essentially prediction market, betting exchange, more or less the same thing. But we felt this was a useful tool for the world to be better able to aggregate available information and just make better forecasts about all kind of things, and therefore make better decisions. That was always the big promise of prediction markets, and I think I still believe in this promise, but it turned out that it's incredibly hard, that it was a long road to go there. And to some extent, I would say we have then tried to build prediction markets, but ultimately the things that we had built back then still was the goal to create prediction markets. Those things became then more successful, and then we decided to double down on those and kind of let the prediction markets take away focus from that. But still, we built a framework for prediction markets, which, for example, Polymarket, which is now the most famous and most popular prediction markets, they use our Gnosis conditional token framework under the hood for their markets.
That was definitely my next question coming into this, is like the conditional tokens leading to Polymarket, and now Polymarket really, I feel like Polymarket is the first time that like I can point my mom to a thing and say this is what a prediction market is for the first time. Would you say the same thing? Do you like Polymarket? Do you like the implementation? Like what's your feeling on Polymarket?
No, for sure. I mean, they certainly hit this, or they were certainly able to create a product that's not primarily about blockchain, but primarily about the product. And then blockchain is just kind of an implementation detail of how to do it. And I think that's certainly how it should be. I think for too long we were in a state where, or I think, there was a period where I think it was, where developers were building for developers. But I think, definitely we need to, leave this period behind us.
Great point. Yes. And this is for those product builders out there. You know who you are. Quit thinking of the same 100 on-chain users that everybody else has, and start thinking about mainstream audiences and what it takes to bring those mainstream audiences on-chain. Let me kind of pivot a little bit, similar to what you guys did. You guys were trying to make prediction markets, and then you needed to find a way to store all this ETH that you had. And that led to a multi-sig that I think Stefan wrote the main one, but like, that led to Safe, which is now what custodies, billions of dollars of funds on chain. Can you talk about that story arc of Gnosis and where you guys are
for
with
sure.
products?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, sometimes the product you actually want to build is not the thing that becomes successful, but kind of instead just a small, what you initially think is a small tool that you don't even consider a full product. And that was certainly the case with a story behind Save Gnosis Multisig. So yeah, it started with just very pragmatic need for a multisig wallet. There used to be just one multisig contract that the Ethereum Foundation had written all the way back for their token sale, but this was not capable of holding tokens. It could only hold Ether, or with tokens you didn't have the multisig feature. So yeah, we built one. We created the contract. Stefan wrote this contract. This was kind of quote unquote the old Gnosis multisig. And again, we did not really thought of it much as a product, but kind of just a tool we need. Well, we somehow need, but yeah, lots of other people needed it as well. And at some point, we realized, it is actually something interesting. Initially, to be honest, we thought it was a trivial thing. I mean, we felt like, okay, I mean, multisig is, I mean, yeah, kind of sure you need some simple rules, 2 out of 3 or n out of m signers, and kind of it seems like a trivial thing, and it didn't seem to us like it was something where you could actually build the whole product around or a team around or even have a business model and all those things. And I think to some extent that was also what helped us, what helped make it successful, because I think there was certainly in the early crypto days a risk that people tried to create overly complex systems, because I think the mind and this is also kind of a problem, or there's at least there's a trade-off in the crypto space, because in principle we like decentralization, and decentralization means or specifically the part of that no single entity is in power, or can just unilaterally do stuff. And that is in very stark contrast to this constant iteration, because for constant iteration you need to start with something that is totally imperfect, and you need to be able to make updates fast and improve things. So yeah, kind of this constant iteration thing and building a product is very different from building a protocol and just something like Ethereum itself. So something like Ethereum itself, or a protocol, is meant to be really stable and kind of and don't change kind of every and I think one problem is that many projects don't exactly know where they are in this protocol versus product, or many ICO projects, they tried to become protocols, but therefore they kind of failed to build products, and those that started simple and kind of just had something, they were often then more successful in kind of having usage for their small thing, and then kind of making it over and over a larger thing. So a kind of an example for this in my view is also Uniswap. They started it was really it started as it's just this kind of very small automated market maker, it didn't had kind of a complicated, basically at the time there were already others that including us actually, we had also tried to build more complex systems that had all kind of other features and more complex protocols. At Uniswap was just doing this very small contract that kind of just did one thing, kind of swap 2 tokens against each other, and that really well made people use it, and then of course it iterated and iterated, and over the years it became, of course, a huge and complex thing. But yeah.
This is a really interesting concept that product builders need to face when they come into the space, that the final form of a fully decentralized protocol looks like something that can't be changed. The starting form needs to be something that you iterate on, and something small. There's these overly complex protocols like MakerDAO at the time that are purposefully complex. So even like lawmakers have a hard time understanding them, and other reasons, right? And moats, right? When we start thinking about products and moats.
Yeah.
But really, the killer app is something that looks trivial on the surface. When you built the multi-sig, or Hayden, built that first little swap in Uniswap, those contracts are so easily copied. Honestly, since it's something that's public, it's something that's out there. You look through the multi-sig the first time and you figure out how it, knows that there's the right amount of owners. You can copy paste that into your contract and add things to it like crazy. So as a builder, when you see that, you don't see a product. You see something easily copyable. You don't see a moat. You don't see. But that's the kind of thing that transforms into a product, and the productization of something is a really interesting in our field, because it's so hard to productize things, and we have so few product thinkers and so many, protocol thinkers, that when it really comes down to finding the thing, it sounds like it's something that's very simple, that people actually need to use, that you can iterate on at first, that can then like slowly harden into a protocol that's fully decentralized, that fits the ethos and everything. Just saying everything out loud. I don't know if I even have a question here, but this is such a great concept.
No, 100%. And I mean, I think it's sometimes surprising how a simple use case still has so much complexity in it, that if you really want to build a great product, then even the simple use case. I mean, one example is, and I really don't like that product all that much, but a DocuSign kind of. I mean, this is basically all it does is somehow say, okay, you have something like a PDF or something, and somehow you want to put a signature under it. And I mean, it seems trivial. You think, okay, I mean, how hard can it be? But it is a multi-billion dollar company with with thousands, or at least hundreds of people working on it, on just kind of this process of signing a document.
I feel like I could one-shot DocuSign now.
Being
flawed.
So it's one should not get misled. Or I mean, of course, another example is or in the blockchain space is still DEXs, and it seems like there's everything, or kind of, okay, we want to trade 2 tokens. How hard can it be? But there's so much small things, small details, and this of course brings me to CowSwap, another project we have been working on. I can definitely tell you, even after 4 or 5 years, kind of still always find ways of, or we still have so many things, so many small details that we know how, or that we can still improve. But already kind of just the state where it is right now, it might look trivial from the outside. Of you kind of define a token you want to sell, a token you want to buy, and kind of somehow press enter. It seems trivial, but I can tell you it's a lot of complexity, a lot of work to make it ultimately a good and easy user experience. Yeah.
That I wanted to get to CowSwap, and maybe I'll kind of tie it in here of just like this narrative of you've been an OG in the space for a long time, and you've leaned into the ethos of decentralization. And I think that there are other actors in the space who may have been more popular than you at some point, and now they don't even exist because of that, like not sticking to the ethos. And you've really stuck to the ethos. You've really like been, my entire time throughout this space, you've always been here, and you've always been this kind of guiding light of what we as product builders and what we as decentralizers should be thinking about. And you started with prediction markets and kind of found that the multi-sig and the safe were a route, and they've spun out of Gnosis now. But also there's this swap kind of, and what CowSwap is. But was this always an idea all the way back then? Like what's the story of the swap?
So CowSwap was actually, or very initially, it was called Gnosis Protocol, and it was initially designed to trade prediction markets because or at least in the prediction market world, we had the idea, okay, there will be so many predictions and so many tokens, and you want to be able to also express more complex trades. So kind of in prediction markets, you can go crazy. You can do conditional trades, and you can do if that, then that, and so on. So you needed, or kind of the idea was to have a quite powerful trading engine where you can express all those intents or beliefs in a way about in this case about predictions, but it's kind of beliefs about prices. But then we realized, of course, that that trading engine can be used for kind of from a contract perspective, the engine doesn't care whether the token you're trading represents a prediction or just a token. Nowadays, we're trading tokenized S&P 500 and stocks and whatever. So the engine is powerful to trade all those assets. So it started with the goal to build this for prediction markets, but then it found its product market fit, I guess, just in general token trading and in the tokens that were popular. And of course, this also changes. So I think that we had some of those meme coin waves, and then people traded meme coins there, and then now they might trade real world assets or different stable coins, or we don't even can keep up ourselves what people are exactly trading, but they still certainly are trading.
So it kind of sounds like there was just there was a need for the thing, sort of, even going back to there weren't even tokens. Like when you created your first prediction market, there weren't tokens, and so you realize we need to make a token standard. Now there's no way to like swap these tokens. We need a way on chain to swap these tokens instead of using an order book. And I think when I first came into this space, it was very similar, where I had these grand ideas of things to build. I go to the hackathon, I start building it, and then I find this like critical piece of infrastructure or tooling that doesn't exist, and then everything changes, and I go after building that thing for a while. You say, and then we realized. I think you said that a couple times. We did this, and then we realized. I'm really interested in this. We realized process. How are you going about validating? How are you going about learning? Who is the we? Like how does that work?
I don't think there was really an exact process, but at some point you just realize that things are used different than you expected, or you have to or you see that or we certainly also kind of tried prediction markets many times, and it simply didn't really took off. So and this was also probably because we made mistakes like well, having too complicated products. Certainly also well, legal was also an issue because it was unfortunately, or still is unfortunately, a topic that raises legal questions. So we were there extra careful, maybe too careful. But then again, other things did take off, and yeah, CowSwap is such an example where then at some point we basically just realized, okay, we built a thing for prediction markets, but no one is trading prediction markets, or just in tiny volumes, but people are trading all other kind of tokens. So let's double down on other kind of tokens and forget the prediction markets, at least for a while. I still think, I actually still believe CowSwap will at some point also become a trading engine for prediction markets again. And to some extent, it's already happening right now. A couple of newer prediction markets currently on Gnosis chain, and also this future key concept is coming back. But yeah, that's maybe for another time.
Futurarchy on Gnosis chain sounds awesome. I'm excited about all sorts of different prediction markets also, and seeing them work. But rolling that back a little bit, you said that we see something happening. My my gut feeling is you saw it happening either by crypto Twitter, like you're following a bunch of people on Twitter and you're seeing them tweet about it. You're also seeing like motion in the smart contracts. You're seeing people make. How do you go about evaluating if something is working? Like when you say that like a prediction market didn't work, how
no, I mean of course, I mean, of course, if you put out the contract or put out the product, of course the absolutely the first thing you should do is set up a Dune dashboard or whatever other way you prefer to track usage. And if the contract isn't used, then you need to change something. I think it's as simple as that. And in that sense, the blockchain is great because it provides so much data and so much transparency. So you can of course look at your own contracts and simply see in a way who's using them, how often are they used. But of course you can also look at other contracts and see just what is currently being used and what are people doing. And I would say always, if people are doing something, then you should look into it. So of course there is also, I think to some extent, a danger of kind of following every hype. And I think that's also I think there have been enough Ponzi schemes or kind of questionable things where just because there was a lot of usage, it's maybe not the thing you want to build. But always, I think you should always I think it's a, or I think still, if something is used, then you should look into it, and you should not if it's whatever, it's Tron, it's Solana, whatever. If people are using it, then you should look into it and kind of understand why are people using this, and what is appealing, and is there something you can take from that, or kind of
This is good advice. Like getting rid of your preconceived notions about how someone might use something or how popular a product might be. Looking at people actually using things, even if it's not stuff that you agree with, like that's you should be paying attention to that. So what about, okay, so this is a hard one, especially for product builders who have had a specific idea and knew this idea was going to be awesome, but just never saw it take off. how do you go about throwing away ideas, or how do you when do you give up? When do you know it's time to give up? Maybe it's just time to give up for now, and 5 years from now maybe you're too soon or too early. What's your process around giving up, I guess?
Yeah, for sure. I think that is absolutely necessary to be able to give up or try something else. I mean, essentially. I think and I would tie it back to usage. So if you cannot get over those first, if you cannot reach those first 100 users, or even maybe some, I mean, reality is with our prediction market stuff, we couldn't even reach 20 users essentially. I mean, we tried and whatever, couldn't. People would simply not do it. And then then it's time to, or then I think of course this can mean that. So I think the prediction markets again are a good example. Polymarket showed it was possible, and they did it not too long after us. So kind of I think roughly when we had this Omen, for example, this was kind of our attempt, and they essentially took this as a basis and iterated over or kind of made certainly improvements, certainly made it easier to I think it's also of course also a mix out of it probably things we have done wrong, but probably also timing simply. So stable coins were critical, kind of just better on ramps, better account abstraction certainly. So actually Polymarket is also using Safe under the hood. So kind of if you create an account, then it essentially creates personal safe for you, one out of one, that makes things that kind of makes things easier of not having to do this, I don't know, approve or kind of multiple transactions for a thing that should be one thing. But yeah, to your point, I do think it is you need to be able to or if you have started with an idea and maybe you've also raised funds for it, I absolutely think it's not the right thing to just kind of ride it to the very end if you simply feel it's not taking off or it's not going anywhere.
It seems to me like there is some serious product wisdom in the comparison of Omen and Polymarket. I think if you're thinking about taking a product live and you want to be a founder and have hundreds of thousands of users, and you want to do it on chain, I would study that. I would study what Shane did differently with Polymarket than you guys had done with Omen to get it to take off. My assumption is there are some certain things that he was willing to do that you guys weren't willing to do. In terms of the ethos, even like you guys would say never, like it always has to be, a certain custody model, never this, because you're so into the ethos, whereas a product builder may think of the user and work backwards.
For sure. So, and I mean, of course, this also is connected with taking legal risks, frankly. So, kind of when we built Omen, we took the very conservative approach. We want this to be 100% decentralized, starting with not even having a regular domain, but using omen.es, and then and of course, those are all ultimate, or kind of unfortunately those were all still obstacles. So then it was an additional hurdle that people there was some support for this. MetaMask did resolve ETH addresses, but not always reliable, and I don't know. I mean, this is of course not the only thing, but those things add up to each other that we were also kind of quite serious about decentralized Oracle and so on. But ultimately, again, this is not something a user cares about. Or I think the promise of decentralized protocols is that, to me, the promise of a decentralized protocol is that of permissionless innovation, that if you build your protocol decentralized, other builders can essentially permissionlessly build on top of it. And that might ultimately create better user experiences. But to get there is really hard. So if you just have, I don't know, you are, say, decentralized, permissionless innovation and so on, but the first user comes, then they don't have any benefit from that. So it's really quite long-term bet to say we need to build everything decentralized and permissionless and self-custody and all of those things. Short-term, of course, the more polished product and kind of being able to essentially call someone or have customer support is much more important than say, you can check the source code and just do it yourself or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's really good insight, and it's hard insight. It's a hard pill to swallow in the decentralized ethos, and like I said, you've been into the ethos of decentralization for a long time, not making compromises, which is my next question is in the other world, is in the artificial intelligence world. And you've been doing tons of AI stuff too. I feel like when I came to visit you in your office a year or two ago, you were really excited about AI, and I was sort of excited about it. But there's been a big shift, right? And we're seeing agents, and we're seeing Claude able to one-shot applications, and we're seeing just, maybe it's not people using blockchains, it's people talking to agents that are using blockchains. Lots of like kind of parallel tech coming up on the side that I think is going to really impact our world a little bit of blockchain applications. What's your view on AI right now? How do you use it in your day-to-day, and what do you think the impact will be kind of going forward?
Yeah, I mean,
super hard question. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, many layers here. So, I mean, first, I think if you are not using AI for coding, then you are absolutely doing something wrong. So you absolutely should. So it has gotten so strong, and I mean, writing smart contracts it's really good at writing smart contracts. It's really good at creating an interface for a smart contract, and it can literally do those things in you can it's really amazing of what you, or how much power you essentially now, or leverage you as a developer have. You can do more or less on your own. You can do things that would previously take weeks, and you can do it in hours. So that's the first point. The second point is I absolutely do think agents will play a major role. Of course, with everything, I think there was probably in the last year some hype that was where essentially it was just a wrapper around chatbots, how they are, and that this was called an agent, and somehow this kind of people pretend this should be worth hundreds of millions of dollars or whatever. I mean, that's usual craziness. But this I do absolutely believe that agents will play a role, and I would even go so far to call them a new form of life that will emerge, and that will be with us. I'm actually also also somewhat concerned about that new form of life
Yep.
because if you, for example, look at what we did to the dominant species that used to live on this planet before humans came, and kind of just fun fact, the biomass of all wild animals or larger wild animals is, I think, now something like 2% compared to all humans and all domestic animals. So I mean, whatever. But yeah, those yeah, I think no one has good answers here, but I think you still have, or I think you have to pay attention simply because it's simply yeah, it will define our world.
Yeah, this is getting pretty big and out there, but I do think that, like, you know, within the year, your laptop is going to be smarter than you, which is freaking crazy and scary. And what kind of impact that will have on them, like you said, what happened to the Neanderthals before us, and will that happen to us? And then, you know, even if we look at just like the Industrial Revolution and how many people were kind of out of jobs at that moment, and that shift on society, is this going to look like that times 10? Like, what is this going to look like? What's going to happen when your computer can think better than you can and answer the phone and answer the phone? There won't be a phone, but you know what I'm saying? Like, they could go about doing what you're doing in your daily life for you better than you can. What are you going to do? And what does that mean? And what are the implications? That's all scary. I can zoom in on things that I find that are actually concrete here. And that's more on the developer side. And that's frameworks are coming back. When we had developers building, if you could choose from a library or a framework to build on chain a year ago, you would always choose a library because you wanted to start from scratch and you wanted to understand everything. But now with agents and AI one-shotting apps, frameworks are way more powerful because a framework kind of gets you most of the way there, and you just have to kind of pattern match to finish. So if you go look at like building a game, maybe you would have started from scratch. No longer are you going to start from scratch. You're going to always use these starter kits because it's going to help the AI like get things done quicker. Do you see the same thing? Are you vibing with this? What do you think? Frameworks versus libraries, AI? I don't know if it's a thing or not. What do you think?
Maybe then I'm not advanced enough yet, so maybe you're right. But so far, I kind of let the AI figure out what to use. So kind of
good. Yeah.
I don't know.
You just say this is the end result I need, and hopefully, if it goes and finds a framework to do that, that would be nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
So okay. So what is your? Are you building products? Like, do you sit down with Cursor and prompt Cursor? Like, what does your stack look like these days?
Yeah, I mean, I personally am prototyping things, so I'm not really building I'm not really creating production code, but certainly to prototype an idea or proof of concept something. I do it all the time. So my personal tooling is still very raw. So Remix and ChatGPT essentially, and copy pasting code into Remix and just deploying it and just trying it on chain immediately. That's usually my my mode.
I need to Cursor scaffold ETH pill you. You can do the same thing with Cursor and scaffold ETH too, but we'll save that for another day. You can circles pill me and I'll scaffold ETH Cursor pill you. Okay, so let's closing questions, kind of high out there, kind of aspiration questions. I feel like we've already kind of been there a few times, but what do you wish you would have known coming into this? I feel like regulation is one of those things. You wish you could
Yeah.
have known you could have been a less tighter, but what
I
do
mean,
you wish you would have known coming in?
Yeah. I mean, the whole regulation thing is really unfortunate because I think, I think, the unfortunate reality is you need to be willing to take legal risks, and this is really a shame because builders are trying to build, or many builders are trying to build just useful stuff and just trying to build something interesting and useful, and you can hardly do that without or at least there are many. There might be some exceptions, but there are many areas where if you just want to build stuff, you have to pay or potentially have to pay a ton of attention to legal questions that are and I think here, unfortunately, the reality is you won't be able to just kind of quote unquote solve the legal question and say, yeah, you have a clear answer, this is possible and this is not possible. You have to be willing to take some risks. I think that's unfortunately just the reality. In terms of building beyond that, I think a few things I said. I think it's important to become clear. Are you building a product? Are you building a protocol? Building protocols is extremely hard because here your users are actually other developers that then hopefully find end users. But I think that's even one step harder than just find or just build a product and find users directly. And then of course there is timing, and there is new trends or new technology that comes out almost, constantly there's something new, and I think that's also a big part to be able to find the right balance between making use of new things, but probably also not being at the complete bloody edge, because that makes it also very hard to build if the things you are building on top are still unstable themselves and are still in development themselves. So I think those are my range of learnings.
We've kind of talked about concepts that have changed, but what about specifically the technology and the technology of Ethereum and the direction, maybe the leadership direction? I think you could definitely comment on the L2 roadmap and where you would have liked it to see it go. But is there something that we know now that we wish we would have known earlier about even that? Is it Vitalik's going in a different direction that we don't agree with? Like what is the thing?
Yeah. So I mean, I think this is unfortunate for the space that there was. I think there was this kind of L1 explosion, which was great. So kind of lots of people building stuff on Ethereum L1, but essentially it hit the ceiling, and it was not possible to do anything on L1 at some point, because fees were just crazy expensive and you couldn't do it. So now then the whole L2 scaling strategy came into place, but I still believe to this day it's not a good strategy, frankly. And to me, really the thing that's so painful is to build across L2. So kind of if you have a smart contract and you have an NFT here and a token there, and kind of you have then just your identity, which is hopefully a smart contract account, is not available on the other chains. If you change the owner here, you're not doing this on other chains, if you don't have a standardized way to transfer for stablecoins, maybe, or for very liquid assets, yeah, maybe that works on different chains. But for more specific assets, NFTs, or even just some rare or kind of smaller tokens, not really compatible. So in my view, unfortunately, the L2 system is a mess and makes building quite hard, frankly.
And your idea was, let's have these federated L2s, but how would they work across?
Yeah, I mean, my hope was, or is still, that either we have just one very large L2, or we have that is, or this is one large L2 that is highly interoperable with Ethereum. So you can do you can have this concept of based L2, where transaction where you can essentially in the same transaction touch or kind of trigger L1 state and L2 state, and you could theoretically even have native reads from the L2 into the L1. You can't do it the other way around, but still. And then even things like still don't have that every token on L1 needs to have a deterministic address on the L2 that you can just assume they are there. You should be able to assume, you should be able from the L2 to call every contract on the L1. Yeah, so I think there are many things that are still missing, unfortunately. And to me, it seems like more all those L2s are loosely connected ecosystems on their own, but they all build up their own liquidity, their own DEXs, their own lending markets, but it's not really one unified ecosystem where you can just kind of have this composability.
And so however they do it, if in a year from now we have this level of composability, that will be a success. But we'll see what that looks like and how it plays out. So you said something there that reminded me of another product decision you've made. And I will get to my last question in just a second, but I could sit here and ask you probably questions for hours because there's so many things that I'm curious about that you're working on. But one thing in particular was when you deploy a safe, you can do it deterministically. And you can put it on the same address on multiple networks with a big asterisk next to that sometimes it doesn't work. Some networks are different. Sometimes if you do it differently, you guys purposefully chose not to let people do that, to not let them take this safe that you just put on Optimism and put on Arbitrum because of this safety decision, right? There's this safety thing where if you put that into your UI and you let people go across multiple networks and they do it wrong, and then they have one owner on this network and 3 owners on this network, and then someone rugs it, you're worried that like you'll be to blame for that, I think. And this is really like a product decision that's really interesting to me.
Yeah. I mean, and I think we have to some extent reverted that, but yeah. What's the so? My view is that that chains should have ideally chain-specific addresses. So ideally, and this would be not that hard. So you could basically just say each. You could even do this for EOAs. So you could say. I mean, the EOA, what is it really? It is a hash of your
pub key.
Pub key, exactly. And you could basically just say each chain has a different salt.
Salt, yep.
Exactly. And then you could say you could deterministically say you have one pub key, and then you could say for all those possible chains, maybe you just use the chain ID. You have a different address. And in my view, that would be much cleaner, because then if you communicate an address, then you already communicate, okay, I'm talking about this specific chain. With EOAs, it's kind of, I mean, even with EOAs, it's already a problem that happens all the time. That if you just have the address, then you don't know, or if you say I want USDC on this address, then yeah, you should really you kind of need to specify, well, this address, but on what chain. So ideally, already an address is combination out of an address or kind of an account plus chain. But yeah, the problem really becomes worse with smart accounts or with safes, let's say, because obviously the owners can completely change and be different. So well, talking about your burner or kind of I mean, well, I think there was an iteration where it was actually using safe. So you have a burner address, then you deterministically create a safe from it. But ideally, that burner key you get rid of then eventually, and you change it. Or if you start to seriously use the safe, then you get rid of this very initial key, and you start to, I don't know, have different owners, or even if you are a team and you start somehow with a team, and years later the team has completely changed, and 2 out of the 3 have already left the team long time ago. But then kind of, if you go the route where you still kind of use a safe that is deterministic on the very initial owner set, then it's simply dangerous. So therefore, we said, safe should always be chain specific, and we don't even want to kind of let people slip into this pattern to assume you can use the same address across different chains. So rather, we tried to say, we even tried this thing where we would always put a prefix by default to the address to really make it clear this is safe on a specific chain. But yeah, I mean, that was rational. Reality was unfortunately still that people, or well, of course there is still the simplicity, or of course there is if the whole ecosystem around us is using addresses, or is not really using this format of combining some chain identifier plus address, then we to some extent had to revert this decision, and now safe actually makes it quite easy for you to deploy the same safe on various addresses. So yeah, this is an example where I think we had our rationale to do it that way, but ultimately had to lean into what others are doing and kind of to some extent revert that decision.
I didn't know that you had updated it. Yeah. You're still on that. Okay, but you can see that these things are at odds. You kind of mentioned the best Ethereum with L2s is this one big one that all acts the same, and you can grab liquidity from anywhere, and addresses work from anywhere.
And right, but specifically, therefore, you actually want to have that address specific. Is this chain specific addresses? So what I want is I want to be able to call from the L2. I want to call the L1 contract, and I want to be and therefore the L1 contract address needs to be unique. I don't want name collusion between the L2 and the one and the L1. So I want completely different addresses on the L2 and completely different addresses on the L1, so that I can just call an address and it is implicitly clear where it is.
But the best user experience is, I'm AustinGriffith.eth. No matter what network you're on, you can YOLO ETH to AustinGriffith.eth, whether it's Arbitrum ETH or Optimism ETH, and I can catch it and use it how I want. That's the ultimate UX, right?
I don't know. I mean, it's certainly not great UX if you receive it on a chain where you then don't have. Or I actually think the name AustinGriffith.eth should simply just include what chain is your preferred chain.
Interesting. Yeah.
And then
Okay.
if I send, so of course I should just send funds to AustinGriffith.es, but kind of implicitly, ENS could easily, or I mean, it actually does, but no one is using it. It actually allows you to specify an address per chain. But yeah, it's not really used.
Heck yeah. Okay. Lots of good questions I could ask you. We could be here all day. Let me get to my final one. It's more of like a weird open-ended question, and that is like your superpower. What do you think your superpower is?
Yeah, I mean, I think I can foresee trends for quite, or I can foresee trends quite some time ahead, which sometimes leads to things like being very early and being then in a way right on things. Sometimes it also leads to being too early. I mean, even with things like Safe that turned out to be widely successful, even there, we also our very first product we built with Safe was actually this consumer wallet. Or kind of this tried to be this accounts abstraction. You can pay with tokens, the gas fee, and it was not at all this team and this it tried to be what maybe it tried to be a simple consumer product that abstracts all those things away. But yeah, that definitely was too early at the time. So yeah, I think that's
so trend seeing though, like you can see the trends. Can you give us something maybe that is something that you see as a trend that's coming up that's maybe counterintuitive? Like any leaks?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think there's this discussion around L2s. So I have been a long time critical of that decision. Agents AI is again a big one. Maybe here just one more. I do think that that the intuition that there will be this one large super AI, that's absolutely not what I would foresee. I would actually foresee many agents all kind of finding their own small niche of essentially earning some money, and essentially we will have an almost evolutionary process that they will find their niche and they will find their way to pay their own GPU bill. And if they fail to do that, then they will kind of quote unquote die. And if they are successful, they will kind of replicate themselves and create multiple instances of themselves that are loosely connected. So this is, I think, how we will get to this new form of life. Well, and then there's, of course, a big bet we are working on, and that is circles. And that is the hope or hope trend that I think one of the big promises of blockchain was to have different or new form of money. And I think this has not come true yet, because so far the most successful things were stablecoins, which are not really a new form of money, which are just essentially more or less, well, of course there are also variations, but more or less it's our fiat money in a different database format, essentially, or kind of just technically slightly different process, but ultimately it's still or in many cases it's still that is a large bet that we have been, or I've also been making for that's even longer than the prediction market. So kind of even before I got into prediction markets 10 years ago, I think 12, 13 years ago, I wrote about Circles as a fork of Bitcoin because that was, yeah.
The idea is kind of like a personal token, and you trust other people, and you kind of have liquidity through people, and everyone kind of has their own token. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, let's what we one step back. So basically, Bitcoin showed it is possible to innovate or create new or different forms of money. That I think is just observable. But now the question is Bitcoin actually better? And specifically, I think right now probably 1 or 2% of the world population hold Bitcoin. And they of course want everyone else to also use Bitcoin. For them, it would certainly be quote unquote better if everyone would move onto Bitcoin, because it would be a massive wealth transfer to them, including me. So
Pump our bag style.
right. So basically, I was at that time kind of a big Bitcoin maxi, but then I felt, would it really make the world a better place, and would it really be better for those 99% of people who don't hold Bitcoin to kind of move into Bitcoin now, when already kind of some early adopters hold most, or now absolutely most, of the Bitcoins. So Circles was then just this abstract idea. Okay, let's take the best of Bitcoin, decentralization, permissionless, no authority that can kind of take advantage out of the system for themselves, but try to be radically fair, and try to be to create this distribution of tokens as radically fair as possible. And that is what Circles does. It says, okay, every person can generate 1 unit per hour. And then you need kind of to decide who is able to join. You don't want a central authority for that. Therefore, you need this web of trust network, where you basically find mechanisms to say, even if people create fake accounts, then as long as they are not trusted, then they kind of don't interfere with the system, where people trust each other and are real. There again, very big idea to say we want to create a new form of money. And that is something we have been now into since I think 12 years ago. It was the first blog post, and then kind of Ethereum came along, and kind of that was a promise of making this more realistic, because then you didn't have to fork Bitcoin. You could kind of just build on top of Ethereum and whatever, and then save and so on. And so maybe that's for the next episode. But we are close to releasing now actually a consumer product, a wallet called Metri, that will be using Safe, that will be using CowSwap, that will be using Gnosis Pay, another one, and that will be using Circles. And I'm very much looking forward to that.
Heck yeah. Speaking of Gnosis Pay, when do I get it in the United States? I would love a card that I could charge my Gnosis Safe with. Again, freaking regulation, right?
Yeah. Unfortunately, probably not this year. Probably next year. Simply decided in other countries needed more.
Understood. Martin, thank you so much. This has been awesome. Thank you for all your insight. Let's have another chat sometime about circles, and maybe even agentic circles, and what that's starting to look like. It sounds fun. All right, Martin, thank you very much. Thank you for all your insight. See you.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.